You're listening to the Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.
And welcome to this edition of the Best Companies radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Robert J. Curtis, and glad to have you here watching and listening to us. This is podcast episode number 8, I believe, and we have a great show for you today. Our special guest today, Scott Diener. Don't have such a scared look on your face, Scott. You're a great guy.
Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Scott Diener of Scooters Jungle, franchisor and franchisee operations, and
Yes.
you're also pro franchise consultant, right?
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that too.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason we have you here today is to talk about franchisor-franchisee relationships and the things that are going on in that world, which you obviously know a lot about. So why don't you start off and tell us about yourself? What do you do, and tell us about Scooters Jungle for sure.
Well, Scooters Jungle is a neighborhood family destination. Really, it's a nice, safe, clean environment. A lot of fun. It's mostly private birthday parties. 5 locations here in Southern California, and it really provides families a worry-free event, and it's fantastic. And we've been doing it 15 years here. And then the other side is Pro Franchise Advisor, which helps individuals realize their dreams and become a franchisee. You know, be CEO of your own company.
But the genesis of Scooters Jungle, so it's been about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, what is Scooters Jungle, and what do you do? I mean, I know because my kids have been there,
Right.
but not all the listeners and viewers might know. Tell us about Scooters Jungle.
So over the 15 years, we've had 4 million people come through our doors plus. And
Wow.
it's just
And what
birthday parties, private birthday parties. So kids say, you know what? It's that one-year event where you invite your family, your friends, you come together. It's, hour and a half of playtime, large inflatables. We play games,
Okay.
a lot of activities. And then you
Okay.
go 45 minutes into a birthday party room. You celebrate the birthday, you eat pizza that we make on site.
It's prepackaged. Everything's coordinated for you, right?
Yes.
And it's offered up in a very nice setting and environment and everything. And somebody else cleans up the mess after they're done, right?
We absolutely. You basically drive up, and we're going to go get all the food out of your car if you brought it in, and we're going to all the way through. It's very, very high, quality, high service is what we're known for.
Okay. Now, there's other franchise operations out there, and different types of franchises out there, whether it's burger joints, whether it's repair businesses, maybe mobile cleaning, automobile detailing, or whatever it might be. There's all kinds of different
hundreds.
franchises. Yeah. What makes your operation great and unique, not only among its players, but as a franchise operation? What makes Scooters Jungle really great?
Well, I think what we do is we consistently deliver uncompromising service. I mean,
Okay.
it's just quality and service is what we're known for.
Okay.
We have high attention to our employees. They're passionate about being working with Scooters Jungle. They're engaged with the customers. Leadership teams. Just everybody loves it. We have employees that stay with us for years and years,
Okay.
and that's really because they truly enjoy. They enjoy working with the families, the kids, and looking at a smile on everybody's faces.
Okay, now, you have how many locations now?
We have 5.
Okay, all around Southern California?
Correct.
Okay. And mostly in suburban environment or urban?
Mostly suburbia.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. And 4 million people.
Plus, that was a few years ago when we finally calculated all the going through the systems. It's a lot of people.
Wow. Okay, so when it comes down to it, you founded this
Yes,
franchise.
my wife and I.
Okay. Before you had some experience with franchises before that, right?
Right. So prior to that, for 15 years, worked with the big franchisors.
Okay.
So learned a lot about developing systems, creating brands.
So you were in-house with
Yes.
the franchisor and the operations and all of that. Okay, interesting. And so you evolved and you decided at some point in time, hey, I want to do my own thing.
Yeah, back then we traveled. I hit 1 million plus miles, and I finally burned out. And so the headhunter said, "What are you going to do?" And they said, "You got to create something or do something here in Los Angeles."
Okay.
So that's what we did.
And so you did it. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you've done that at 10 years or plus, right? You've been and you got that going. I believe your wife now is essentially running or managing
Correct.
it and taking
CEO.
off with it, right?
Mhm.
CEO. And you have stepped back a bit. And you're actually consulting now with franchisees? Is that what it is?
With franchisees and people that have the hopes of becoming a franchisee and helping them figure out, you've got 80, 90 different industries out there. There's so much availability. How do you know what's right for you based on your skills, your abilities, your lifestyle? What kind of franchise do you want? Then once you become a franchisee, how do you then make that transition? Maybe you work the corporate world. Now you become a franchisee. You're now a CEO of your own company in your local community. Well, now what? So people struggle sometimes with, well, all of a sudden I got a big staff. What do I do? How do I become that leader that I sometimes relied on the big company that kind of told me what to do?
Right. Well, so what happens then is you're evolving from wherever you came from into a situation where you need to be not only a business owner because you're investing capital of some sort, but also a manager at a certain level. You have to start doing people management. You have to do operations. You have to do all of the things that are involved with running a business. But then you also have the dimension of having to deal with the franchisor and the franchisor expectations. It's good that they have them. They give you systems. They give you requirements and methods, and they help set you up. But at the same time, you have to deliver up to those expectations, right?
That's exactly it. And hopefully you exceed it, because if you want to be in that top 10% in that franchise system, you're coming with some skill sets and abilities that are doing something above and beyond. You're offering a higher quality, higher service. You're doing something, your higher retention of employees. Why? Because it's your style. If it's as much as picking up trash on the ground, if they see you doing that, then the employees are going to go, wow, the leader who I'm following and entrusting on is also doing that too.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to dig into that a little bit. Why don't we take a quick break, and then we can dig into what are the issues that come up with a franchisee, especially a new franchisee coming into the environment where they're wanting to take on a new business and wanting to become an operator, and having to go through all of these issues of dealing with the franchisor, dealing with the employees, maybe building a store from ground up, everything else. Okay?
Excellent.
So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that gives CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
And welcome back to this edition of the Best Companies Show and Podcast. I am your host, Robert J. Curtis, and we have here with us this morning Scott Diener of Scooters Jungle and of Pro Franchise Advisors, and we're talking about the people management issues and other issues that come up with being in the franchisor-franchisee world. And Scott has many, many years' experience dealing with that. So let's dig in. Before we do that, real quick, I want you to let everybody know how they can reach me and how they can reach Scott if you want more information, you want to find out about us. One thing for sure is you can come to the bestcompanyshow.com website. And look, we have all of our past episodes and guests on the website there, and we can take a look. You can take a look at them and find out more about what we do and how we do it at the website. You can also reach out to me at LinkedIn. Robert J. Curtis, and find me there. You'll see my references to bestcompanyshow.com and also my company, which is a sponsor of this one, alphaquantix.com, where we do people analytics and metrics, behaviorals, cognitives, engagement, culture surveys, things like that. As far as reaching Scott, how would we reach you?
You could go to LinkedIn also. It's Scott Diener on LinkedIn. And phone number, you can always 949-900-0588, or you can go to Scott at profranchiseadvisor.com.
Okay, now, and Diener is spelled?
DIENER.
Okay, and don't forget, we also have Scooters Jungle here, right?
That's right.
There's
And
a website.
Scooters Jungle, you could go to contact@scootersjungle.com. SCOOTERS jungle.com.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's dig in. You were talking before the break about the issues that come up as being a franchisee and the management expectations and let's say a new franchisee coming in and taking over operations and things they haven't done in the past. What are the issues you see the most? Or maybe pick one that you think is really important. What are the issues? What are the problems? Where do the problems come up? They've got these great systems that the franchisor provides, right? They've got a name recognition, brand name. They've probably, the minute they open their door, they've got people walking through it just because of the recognition and because of what the franchisor has developed over time. But what is a franchisee experience?
I think people underestimate. So franchisor system says, okay, we have sales, we have marketing, operations, accounting, IT, but people underestimate the people side, which is now I have to go out and hire and retain and train and really become that leader.
Okay. And what are the issues that come up if they're not doing that? I mean, what do you see happening?
Well, you get high turnover.
Okay.
Over time, and you're so why is it me? Well, and you start peeling it back and figuring out when maybe it's a leadership style, maybe
Okay.
there's a cultural, meaning it's the culture is not set in place where it's a fun environment. People are willing, they're engaged, they take responsibility, accountability.
Okay, but what how does that come out in what happens in the operations? For example, obviously, if you're not selling enough, if your sales force isn't strong, if that's part of your operations, then your numbers aren't there, right? You're not selling enough to bring enough money in. But there's other things. There's quality. There's what do you? I don't know. There's what other things the franchisee is responsible for? Maybe you can help me out with this. Franchisees have to do a lot, right? They have, and the problems that they might have with the people is turnover. But what's the symptom? What do they see in the how does their business get affected by these problems that you're talking about?
Well, I think if people don't learn the systems and they're not able to execute it, they don't feel empowered. And it all starts with the franchisee. Franchisee goes to this training program. They teach you for 2-3 weeks. What do you really retain? They're not taking in all that information, and so they got to learn where to find that, and they're not tapping into the other franchisees, the community that's built with a franchise system.
Okay, so now I get it. A guy comes in, he's got X $100,000 or whatever it takes to start the business, right? He goes and he buys a franchise. He gets 2-3 weeks training, maybe a month or 6 weeks, whatever it is. He gets a bunch of training, and he gets somehow he gets the keys to the door, right? He builds it, or it's already there. And he gets on board, and all of a sudden, after just working with the franchisor for a few weeks, all of a sudden he's off and running, right? And there's only so much you can learn in those few weeks of training. So that's where the gap starts, right? You've got, at least the way you're describing it. So because of the lack of experience in the past, in a lot of cases, and the lack of specific training, the entrepreneur really has to be a self-starter and has to really get out there and work hard at developing the skills and things they need. Otherwise, things start falling apart. Okay. So what are the skills and what are the things you think that they need to develop? You mentioned leadership. You mentioned, relating to employees, maybe culture, things like that. Tell me about it. What do you think?
Well, it's a hard juggling act that first 6 months.
Okay.
Because you're out there, you're saying, okay, I got to drive revenue. Well, at the same time, then if you're by yourself, well, then it's on you. If you have then a bulk of employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, 30, 50, then you become that leader. And you talk to the big corporations. What is the key of the CEO? It's talking to the core customers that are driving the business and the core employees. And it's mostly about training, making them feel that they have the accountability, responsibility, that they have the keys to the kingdom and take it. But in a franchise system, you don't want too much because the employees do need to follow the system, and that's why you're part of a franchise, is because there is a system. If you're highly entrepreneurial, you would never buy a franchise because you would just build it yourself. You have that high risk component. But now, franchisee, you come from the corporate world. Someone is always some ways told you, here's what you need to do. Now, the system is there, but you really are in control of what do you do every day. You know, there's no one telling you, you get up in the morning.
Right. You make your own agenda, right?
Yep.
And you make your own purpose and your meaning and all of that, right? Out of all this. Okay, so you, with all of your experience, I've got some great insights on this, I'm sure. And that's my key question. My key question is, what can the franchisee do? And what should they do to help launch their business and do well at it? Tell me, what does it take?
I think it's as much as weekly meetings with the franchisor, tasks, stay on action items, getting to know franchisees in the community. How'd you scale different? What would you do different? How, you know, if you do it all over again, what would you do? And it's learning from the people that are already within the system, and then every single day staying on task. And you can't divert. You got to pick those one or two things that you got to get done today that are going to drive the business forward. And people sometimes get lost in different directions because they get drifted. Customers ask for different things, and you've got to stay on that task list.
Okay, so with that in mind, one of the first tasks that anybody's probably going to do when they take on a franchise operation is some hiring. They're either going to hire a whole new staff if it's a brand new store, or they're going to be hiring their new managers, their people to come in and supplement the team they've got. Have any advice on that? Hiring, things like that?
Yeah, it's really about, to us, we've always hired on passion. And you can train, if you've got passion, you can train against it.
Okay.
And then you just keep training, you help with expectations. Help people learn, here's what I want from you. It's the same whether it's a customer or an employee. Here's the expectations. And a lot of the things that break down are because expectations, they're not managed on one way or shape or another. And I think that you build the business based on, reputation, trust, and you let the employees try. And if something doesn't go right, well, at least you learn from it. And you keep building that business. And that's why we've had employees for many, many years. Why? Because it's trust. And that we've trained correctly, and that they know what we would do when we're not there.
Okay, so that's a key. Now the question is, when you hire and you're selecting, for example, you said you're selecting with the passion, but passion isn't everything, is it? I mean, you have to have some
skills and experiences, of course.
But those are fundamental. You have to have expectation. What about things like all of the new things they're going to have to learn? I mean, you have to. Do you focus on like a candidate's ability to learn or their ability to absorb new information? Is that key, or is it really the passion makes up for that? You tell me.
So for us, like in Schooner's Jungle, we gave them a safety speech. Before you're hired, let's talk about it. Here's a safety speech, learn it, talk to us, tell us about it. Act as if we're the customer now, sitting there listening to you, and it's part of that role playing to make sure that you fit and that you feel comfortable. We've had a couple of employees, they would walk down the hallway and they would never look at you in the eyes. That turned out to be a wrong employee. That was an issue. Why? Because they're not looking at the customers either. And the customers are saying, we really didn't care for it. We love you guys, but we really had an inconsistent experience. And so we've learned to hire better and better, but it took many years.
So I would call that something like soft skills. Okay,
Yes.
And in the interpersonal relationships. So really, let's boil it down, and before we wrap it up for this break, let's say be passionate, be trainable and learnable. Okay, teachable. There you go. That's the word. Thank you. And then the third thing would be now I forgot it. No, the third thing was with the soft skills. Okay, so we got those three things that seem to be what you focus on. That's great. It's good to know. I know that you've been a success and you've had great successes. What I'm going to do after we take a quick break is I'm going to come back and I'm going to challenge you with a weekly hot seat question. This week I've got one that specifically relates to franchisees and franchisors, and it's been in the news a little bit lately. And I don't know if you know what I'm going to go for, but I'm going to give my best shot, and I want you to give your best answer.
You got it.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Robert J. Curtis is the founder and CEO of Alpha Quantix, a premier provider of employee analytics and metrics that helps CEOs and managers of middle market companies hire the best, manage the best, and be the best. Robert is a keynote speaker, presenter, moderator, and panel member who regularly appears at conferences, business events, and association meetings nationwide. His presentations provide powerful information that gives CEOs and managers of middle market companies valuable insights to improve their hiring and engagement skills. If you'd like Robert to make a personal appearance, he can be contacted by visiting his show's website, bestcompanyshow.com, or by emailing Robert at info@bestcompanyshow.com.
And welcome back again to the Best Company Show. I have with me my guest, Scott Diener, and I'm ready to throw the hot seat question of the week at him, and he has that terrified look on his face like he's not ready for it. Okay, so I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I'm going to do my best. Okay, everybody knows it's been in the news a bunch lately, for a long time actually, and it's continuing. It's the McDonald's thing and what's going on in the franchise or franchisee world. McDonald's has been taking a lot of heat for minimum wage issues, for overtime issues, for working conditions, for gender equality, pay gaps, a lot of different issues. And that's at the franchisor level, which is interesting because that's different. It's the franchisees that are doing a lot of the hiring, the assigning the overtime, the engagement with the employees, and they're actually deciding a lot of those factors, and they're for good reason. The franchisee has all the incentive to do to make a profit and do a good job. So we got this issue, and it doesn't seem to have been resolved. The franchisor has taken all the heat, but the franchisee is the one that has all the motivation. Tell me, give me your thoughts. Is it really the franchisor that should be taking the heat for this, or is it the franchisees that are the ones who are vested in the employees and really managing the employees and should be taking the responsibility for the pay differences, minimum wages, all those things that involve the employees?
I think it really stems from the direct and immediate control. Who has that? And that really is on the franchisee because they're doing the hiring, they're doing the firing, they control the daily activities, they set the service standards, the working conditions. And so, and I think the franchisees want that, right? Because they're in control. They're the CEO now. Maybe they work for a big company, and now they can establish what kind of culture, what kind of business that they are going to be responsible for, and what does the community think of their business. They're in control.
Right, and they have all the incentive, right?
Yes.
They're the ones that need to do the things we talked about before the break, which is hire the right people, get the passion going, get the engagement going, get the culture, teach their people how to deliver product or the service in a consistent manner, and good quality, and all of that. So they have all the incentives, and they have a lot of the control, even though maybe the franchisor is involved. So what you're saying is basically, maybe the franchisors are taking a little bit more heat than they need to these days on those issues, whether it's the legal liability or with the press and those kind of issues. Am I summing it up correctly?
No, that's exactly it.
Okay, good. So I want to thank you, Scott. Thank you for enlightening us and being here as a guest. You've been a wonderful guest and actually my first guest talking about franchisee relationships. This is wonderful, and it's good to have that perspective. It's a big part of the business world. So thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank Paul Roberts, who's the engineer at the live studio here, and Roland Countermeyer, my producer, who's starting to take us on the road with productions now, and you'll be seeing those coming up soon. Again, if you want to connect with me at Robert J. Curtis at LinkedIn, or bestcompanyshow.com, or at my business, my behaviorals, cognitives, engagement, and cultures business, which is alphaquantix.com, spelled Quantix at the end. And you can reach me at 1-877-QUANTIX with an X at the end again, also, if you want to call me. And Scott, how do we reach you?
LinkedIn, Scott Diener, D-I-E-N-E-R. You can also send me an email, scott@profranchiseadvisor.com, or phone 949-900-0588.
And until our next show, I hope your hiring and management decisions will lead you to be one of the best companies.
You've been listening to The Best Company Show, Southern California's business podcast, focusing on topics of interest to CEOs and managers of middle market companies, with your host, Robert J. Curtis.